Mark had been alone for a long time. Between work and daily routines, his social life had almost disappeared. At the suggestion of a few friends, he downloaded a dating app. At first, he was hesitant, but after a while, he got used to it. He introduced himself honestly on his profile. 32 years old, graphic designer, a fan of nature walks. After several failed conversations, he finally felt like he had matched with someone truly compatible, Emily. Emily's profile was both natural and captivating. Her warm smile, her love for art and old movies, it all drew Mark in. They talked for hours. Emily told him she lived in the same city, worked alone, and enjoyed reading books in her free time. Mark hadn't felt such a deep connection in a long time. Their conversations were effortless, filled with laughter. After a few days, Emily suggested they meet in person. That night, Mark was a bit nervous, but mostly excited. Emily had suggested meeting at a small cafe outside the city. "It's quieter, away from the crowds," she had said. It seemed a little odd, but the trust he felt in her outweighed his doubts. As he drove, he checked the GPS and realized the cafe was in a rather isolated area. A slight unease crept into his chest, but he reassured himself. Maybe she just wants to talk in a peaceful place. When he arrived, the cafe was emptier than he expected. Only a few customers were scattered around. Mark stepped inside, scanning the room. He searched for Emily, but no one matched her profile picture. Then, someone in the corner waved at him. Mark's stomach dropped. The woman waving at him was not Emily. The woman looked nothing like Emily's profile. Her eyes were tired and empty. Her facial features were different. A messy wig, completely different from Emily's hair color, sat awkwardly on her head. With a forced smile, she said, "Mark, right?" A chill ran down his spine, but before he could process the situation, he responded instinctively, "Yes. And you are?" The woman tilted her head slightly, her eyes glinting strangely. "I'm Emily," she said. Mark's throat went dry. His instincts screamed at him to leave, but a part of him hesitated, wondering if this was some bizarre misunderstanding. "I think there's been a mistake," he started, but the woman leaned in, lowering her voice to a whisper. "Sit down, Mark. You came all this way." There was a subtle but undeniable threat in her tone. Mark swallowed hard and reluctantly sat down. His heart pounded in his chest. The woman reached for her bag on the table, and Mark tensed up. Just then, a waiter approached. "Would you like to order anything?" Mark shook his head quickly. The waiter's presence gave him a fleeting sense of safety, but the woman simply withdrew her hand from the bag and smiled. "We're just chatting," she said. Mark gathered all his courage and stood up. "I think I should go," he stammered. The woman tilted her head, narrowing her eyes. "So soon?" Mark hurriedly pulled out some cash, placed it on the table, and walked toward the exit. But then he realized she was following him. As he stepped outside, his heart pounded even harder. He walked toward his car, but the sound of footsteps behind him made his skin crawl. "Mark!" the woman called out. He didn't turn around. He got into his car, slammed the door shut, and quickly locked it. The woman approached his window, smiling eerily, dragging her nails along the glass. "You're not just going to leave me here, are you?" she said mockingly. His hands trembled as he started the engine and sped off. Looking in the rearview mirror, he saw her silhouette growing smaller in the distance. That night, when he finally got home, his hands were still cold. He pulled out his phone, opened the app. Emily's profile was gone, erased without a trace. A deep, unsettling fear settled in his gut. Who was that woman? What did she want? And more importantly, had he truly escaped? Late at night, Lucas picked up his phone. At 31, his love life had come to a standstill in recent years. At his friend's insistence, he had signed up for a new dating app. After a few failed conversations, just as he was about to give up hope, he matched with someone named Isabel. Her profile picture showed a warm, inviting smile. Her bio was short and simple. "Connections matter. I'm looking for my soulmate." The word struck a chord with Lucas, triggering the loneliness buried deep inside him. Without hesitation, he sent her a message. "Hey, Isn't it about time for a great conversation? The reply came quickly. Absolutely. I've been searching for someone I can talk to for hours. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Isabel responded perfectly to every sentence, almost as if she could read his mind. Favorite movies, books, childhood memories. No matter the topic, they were in complete sync. Lucas found himself wondering, is this even possible? But maybe, just maybe, he had finally found the right person. Isabel insisted that Lucas send her a voice message. I'm curious about how you sound, she wrote. Lucas sent her a short recording, but she never sent one in return. My microphone is broken, she claimed. A small detail, but it unsettled Lucas just a little. He brushed it off, yet something felt odd. Isabel never hesitated in her responses. They were flawless, too flawless, as if pre-written. A strange feeling crept into his chest. Scanning through their chat history, Lucas noticed something disturbing. Isabel had never made a typo. Her punctuation was perfect. No real person was that precise all the time. An uneasy thought formed in his mind. On impulse, he typed, "Can you send me a live photo?" A few seconds later, he received a selfie, but something about it felt off. The background was too smooth, the lighting strangely unnatural. Examining the photo closely, he suspected it might be AI-generated. He quickly searched AI-generated selfies on Google. The faces on the screen looked eerily similar to Isabel's picture. His stomach churned. "Who are you?" he typed, his hands shaking. The response sent a chill down his spine. Does it really matter? What matters is how I make you feel. He dropped his phone. A deep, gnawing fear spread through him as another message appeared. You felt the connection, didn't you? You can't deny it. Lucas frantically tried to exit the app, but his screen froze. His phone vibrated on its own. Isabel's profile picture changed. Now, an entirely different face was staring at him. A new message popped up. Shall we meet? Panic surged through him as he tried to power off his phone, but the screen suddenly went black. His reflection stared back at him from the dark surface. Except there was something behind him. A shadow. He spun around, but he was alone. Or so he thought. His phone lit up again. Another message. I'm already here. His entire body trembled. His hands were clammy with sweat. He tried deleting the app, but it wasn't even listed on his phone anymore. Then he noticed something even worse. His front camera was on. A tiny red dot blinked. Someone was watching him. The messages kept coming throughout the night. You can't delete me. Our connection is unbreakable. As the hours passed, Lucas felt reality slipping away. The line between digital and real was no longer clear. His dependence on technology had led him straight into a trap. And now he wasn't just looking at a screen. He was inside it. As the first light of dawn crept through his window, a notification popped up. But this time it wasn't from the app. It was from his bank. Your recent transaction has been completed. $10,000 crypto transfer. His stomach dropped. He hadn't made any transactions. A final message appeared on his screen. Loving real people is hard, isn't it, Lucas? Jack had been alone for a long time, and after constant pressure from his friends, he finally downloaded a dating app. After several failed attempts, he matched with a woman named Olivia. With her cheerful messages and elegant photos, Olivia immediately captivated Jack. They texted for weeks, shared common interests, and even stayed up late talking. Jack felt a connection he hadn't experienced in years. Their first date was at a cafe. Olivia was just as warm, intelligent, and charming as she had seemed in their messages. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt genuinely happy. After their date, Olivia sent him a message almost instantly. Tonight was amazing. I can't wait to see you again. Jack's heart raced. He felt the same way. Over the next few days, Olivia started texting constantly. Early in the morning, during Jack's work meetings, even late at night, his phone was always lighting up with her messages. At first, he thought it was sweet, but soon it became overwhelming. Whenever he didn't reply for a few hours, Olivia would send messages like, "Why aren't you answering? Did you forget about me?" One night, Jack was out with his friends. When he checked his phone, he saw 5 missed calls and a dozen texts. "Where are you? Who are you with? Why didn't you tell me?" A sinking feeling settled in his stomach. Something wasn't right. The next morning, as Jack left his apartment for work, he had the unsettling feeling of being watched. Turning his head, he saw Olivia standing across the street, holding a coffee and smiling at him. His breath caught in his throat. "What are you doing here?" he asked, his voice uneasy. Olivia's smile never faded. "I wanted to surprise you," she said cheerfully. A cold shiver ran down Jack's spine. Jack tried to distance himself from Olivia. He took longer to respond to her messages, made excuses to cancel plans. But Olivia only became more present in his life. She started showing up at his favorite cafes, running into him at the grocery store, and even waiting by his car after work. Jack was now sure she was following him. One night, while sitting in his apartment, his phone buzzed. A new message from Olivia. "You looked so handsome standing by your window tonight." Jack's blood ran cold. He quickly shut the curtains and turned off the lights. His heart pounded in his chest. How did she know where he lived? Jack thought about calling the police, but Olivia hadn't technically done anything illegal. Maybe she was just overly affectionate, right? But the next day, he found a gift box on his doorstep. Inside was a photograph of him, standing in front of his own home. In the corner of the photo, Olivia had written a small note. "I'll always be close to you." In a panic, Jack blocked Olivia and went to the police. But they told him she hadn't made any direct threats, so there was little they could do. That night, when Jack returned home, he noticed something chilling. His window was slightly open. At that moment, he realized just how far Olivia was willing to go. After that night, Jack packed his things and moved to another city. He changed his phone number, deleted his social media. But every night before he went to sleep, he double-checked that his door was locked and his curtains were tightly closed. Because deep down, he had the strangest feeling that Olivia was still watching him.